If you want to hear where I've been, the second channel, and the future of my content, stick around at the end of the video.
Before I go, there's one more thing. Take a look at this brand new original game from the Arcane team at Bethesda, the studio that created Prey and Dishonored. Arcane created something new for them, an open world immersive shooter that you can play alone or with your friends. And like Starfield, this game will be an Xbox exclusive.
I have the way that I think about, and then I'm actually going to go this way this time, and it feels compelling to do that. So, yeah.
If I could add anything to that, or if I could put it into one word, it would probably be like transported. Like, we put so much effort into the narrative, into the world building, the environmental storytelling, all that.
I hated all 12 hours I had to play. It's shit gameplay, shit story, shit character, shit graphics, shit performance, and shit.
I'm gonna follow her. What? What? She turned into a manhole, of course.
What the hell is anybody doing here? And will we all be dead by the time we actually get to something enjoyable next?
There may be occasional glimpses of a competent co-op shooter on display, but otherwise RedFall is just like a vampire in all the wrong ways. That is, it really wasn't ready for daylight in this state.
I'll start, I'll hit RedFall, but I'll just say all up, there's nothing that's more difficult for me than disappointing the Xbox community. Just to kind of watch the community lose confidence, be disappointed. I'm disappointed. I'm upset with myself.
Hello? Whose phone is this?
I don't need a proper intro. I am the intro. Hello, ladies and gamers. How's your day going? Well, today, I'm going to make it a bit better for you. I suffered through this, so you don't have to. So before you even ask, yes, it was as bad as they say. I kid you not, this is one of the worst games I've ever played. I am not capping like the kids say. Bugs, gameplay, AI, the story of all things, it fails terribly. And yes, it is worse than DMC2, which honestly I didn't think was even possible. And before anyone even starts, I am a fan of Xbox, specifically because of Ninja Theory and Game Pass. In fact, most of the gameplay you'll see on my second channel, more about that at the end of the video, has footage of the games that I play on Game Pass. I love Game Pass, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. Playing so many games is the best part. So no, I don't hate Xbox or Bethesda or Arcane or whatever. I just hope that my feedback is heard to make better games in the future. Mostly because I will play them. So no, I'm not an Xbox hater. A few things to note before we start. I had a lovely chance to speak with Android Axel, James, and ssjmike. Their commentary will be spread out over this video, and if you want to hear the full discussions, they will be posted on my second channel. Without further ado, let's start with RedFall, a miserable mistake. Right out the gate, there were signs of this game's quality long before its release. But let's go back to a simpler time. The day is June 13th, 2021. It marks the first day Bethesda and Xbox do a showcase together. Xbox need to bring in the heat. Needing to bring the fire, if you will. And for the most part, they did. But nearly 2 hours after the show started, they introduced a special game by the studio behind Prey and the Dishonored series. But this was actually the first red flag. While it's true this game was made by Arcane, just not the same Arcane. The Arcane that made Dishonored and Prey is from France, while the team that worked on RedFall is from Austin, Texas. Arcane Austin's team has only worked on like a DLC or two, and that's kind of it. RedFall is their first full-on game. This first trailer was full CGI short, showing the basics of the game without showing any gameplay. Some people may dislike that, but to me it's understandable. The funny part about it is that none of the banter or the story interactions ever made it into the actual game. June 12th, 2022. Rolled around and it's the first thing that they show off is RedFall. The chat seemed to be bored by it, but oof, if they only knew. Yet again, we get tons of dialogue that never made it into the main game. But surely they knew what they were doing, right? The next showing is the Developer Direct, where we are shown more of the game. They showed off gameplay like Stealth. Stealth and RedFall. Oh, good one. I do like the Direct overall, but after this point, it got much worse.
Taking down vampires angers the vampire gods, who will summon the Rook to take you down.
Around the game's release, Xbox gave a demo of the game to IGN. People saw it and the internet was thrown ablaze. Everyone blamed the IGN player, but in fact, oh wait. Give me a second, hold on. Dear Mr. IGN player, I am deeply sorry for making fun of your gameplay. Sorry I didn't know that the controls of this game would be stiffer than my butt after Taco Bell, and yes I know it's a problem, but that's not my point. And you running all over the place with no plan to defeat the Rook is exactly what I have done. Your buddy, Splinter. P.S. Your scores still suck. Then there was the 30 FPS disaster when it was announced that the game would only run at 30 FPS on consoles. And when the game came out, people ripped it a new one. But was it worth it? Let's start off with the beginning of the game. This has to be one of the worst intros I've seen, and that says a lot. So, let me explain. Once you start the game, it'll ask you to pick a character. Now, if you're wondering if you can switch, later in the game, you can't unless you go all the way back to the main menu to do so. So, even if the character doesn't fit your playstyle, too bad, man. Layla's mind is a telekinetic weapon. She came to RedFall to attend her local university, but after volunteering for a shady medical study by I'm not reading that, she emerged. We are then greeted with a cutscene telling us the main story of the game. Now, there are 3 major problems with this game's intro right out the door. First one is the story itself. The story that is told to us is by some girl that went to Redfall to give her blood away thinking it would save others, then went wrong leading to vampires showing up, blah blah blah. The people trying to escape, doesn't work, so they're trapped in Redfall. I have so many questions, man. Why is this girl's blood the key? Who is this girl? Why did vampires show up? Where did they come from? Who were in the positions of power to make this all happen? Was there anyone trying to stop this whole event? Were all of those that tricked her vampires? And if so, why did they take a human form when nothing like this ever happens in the game? Were all these cult members? And if so, how did they get into high positions of power? Why isn't the rest of the United States responding? There are just so many questions right out the gate. Don't get me wrong, leaving questions in the air could encourage the players to finish the game, but there can't be too many questions with little to no answers. Especially when the opening cutscene is only 2 minutes long. That's too many questions with not a lot of time to answer them. The cutscene is basically like, some girl gave her blood, and there's vampires now, I guess, go fight. And that's it. Openings don't need to set up everything, but there needs to be something more substantial story-wise. We need a reason to play the game, but the cutscene gives us the bare minimum. We don't even know what the vampires want, my ginger. It isn't explained, and if you haven't noticed already, we've got these low-budget cutscenes, and not just low budgets, but still frames. This looks so cheap. I'm not against the idea of still frame cutscenes, but this is your opening? Ooh, voice cracked a little there. Ooh. Show and introduce us to something interesting to look at. It's not even a good art style. There's no color, and the individual detail is so lazy. This is the first thing that you see when you start the game. Do something that shows the journey ahead. That's exciting. After some still lazy frames, the player is supposed to get hyped for this game? Remember, the average player won't even finish the game, so the start of the game is crucial. I doubt the player wants to play the rest of the game with an opening so thrown together, but we still aren't done yet. The third thing is the characters. After this cutscene, we get a short intro for the vampires, and then the game just starts. We don't know anything about the character. The game only gives us the readable descriptions, oh boy. But that's not enough to understand the character. I want to know more about their background. If I'm playing as this character, I need to know more about them. Now, some of you might say that you don't need to know anything about the character to play them. And for most people, that's true and a fair point to make. But when you're looking over the intro as a whole, this problem starts to shine through. The story doesn't make sense and leaves the viewers with only questions. The presentation doesn't work because the art style is flat and lazy, and now we don't even have anything for our main characters. Overall, this is nothing to get attached to. This is a terrible start to a game. Let's do something nutty. I'm going to compare the openings to other games that are currently on Game Pass. Let's start off with Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush starts with an average length scene. We are shown what he wants to be, setting up a rock star personality type. Then we are shown his downright beautiful animation with color and detail. We are briefly shown the villains and what they want, and then Shy gets an MP3 player smashed into his chest. Everything that we know to start the game is right in front of us. Not many questions and a great way to start gameplay. Or straight into the gameplay like Watch Dogs 2. It gets you hooked on the gameplay, then more is told to you after, giving you just enough you need to know about Marcus to keep on playing. Then after this you are rewarded with a high-tech cutscene straight up telling you everything you need to know about the game's story. Another game on Game Pass is Persona 3 Portable, and just in that game, Persona 3 starts off with a kick-ass song and animated intro, and you haven't even started the game at this point. That's just booting up the game. Again, all of these games are on Game Pass, so this is the game that we're dealing with, and we aren't even in the actual gameplay yet. For this section, I put the menu and the art design together, since in a lot of ways they have the same problem. When I pull the menu in a video game, I expect the most basic amount of info. Things like the settings, skins, and the map, all in view through a press of a button. Every info should be shown to the player once they hit that button. Not only is it practical, but it also is meant for a pause button. But ever since Mass Effect Andromeda, menus have always had these awful looks to them after that game's release. Instead of being shown everything, you now need to scroll to get to all the stuff that you actually want to get to. Case in point, RedFall's menus. When you open it up to see the loadout, then skills if you scroll, then map if you scroll, missions if you scroll, archive if you scroll, and finally the settings if you scroll. Man, I hate this. The menu should be straight to the point. Hear the words that you're looking for, click on it, and go to them. But if you want to get to the settings or the archive, you have to scroll all the way over to it. First of all, I don't understand why the words are hiding from me. The words should be front and center. That's the way I can see what I'm looking for. The second problem is that the game wants me to see as much of the character as possible. For example, let's take the skills. The skills part of the menu, I have to see my character and the skills that I want to upgrade. I'm sorry, but what does my outward appearance matter to my skills? None of my skills affect my appearance, so why is it there? And just because I really don't like my character all that much, here's V dancing. Thank you, Editing Splinter. Very cool. Yeah. Oh, look at him go. He's so cute, isn't he? Well, too bad nobody will play as him, but, you know. Third, why do I need a map option if you already have a button for the map? Fourth, I hate this loadout sub-menu. Why is there so much bullshit on screen? In this one sub-menu, there's like 3 different things, like the weapons appearance and other minor stuff. Why is it so jammed into so little? Overall, this menu is an absolute nightmare. It feels like every new game that comes out has to have the same menu design when it doesn't need it. The menu doesn't need a huge amount of stuff to entertain you. It just needs words that can help you find whatever you want. All you need are words. That's it. But every live service game is trying to be Destiny, so we're stuck with this.
Leave me alone!
Next, let's talk about the art style. A lot of people don't like this art style, but I think under the right context, it could work. So first, this art style is somewhere between real and artistic. It doesn't have the graphics to be real looking, but at the same time, it's too real to look artistic. So this game is stuck in that weird middle ground. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of the early 2010 time period. I think the only way to have this work is if the game is continuously in motion. I can't wait for all the cutscenes to look...
Joke's on her. Dangerous nighttime forests are where I do my best work. She must have not watched my show. She was probably too busy being... What was it Bellwether's Intel said? a doctor named Alice Young.
Oh wait. This choice looks awful. Everyone's hands look huge. What are wrong with their hands?
Don't ask.
So's your hands!
We owe you one.
Look at that hand!
I'm Anna.
When she gives birth to her kid, she can like just reach in there and just grab it with one hand. Look at the size! What the hell? Like his index finger is the length of the barrel of that shotgun. That's insane.
This art style without any flair or detail is just ugly to look at. It could be used better if they added more flair to it, but they didn't. Again, Hi-Fi Rush, a game published by Bethesda, looks like gold, and Minecraft Legends, a game published by Xbox, also looks better than this. So let's do the compare game. Let's pick from my favorite studio, Enslaved Odyssey to the West, a game that was released in 2010 and looks far better than this game. The game takes place in a post-apocalyptic world, but in Enslaved everything has color and light, giving the world an almost overtaken by nature look, with greens and blue skies. Something about the world may not have life, but it makes the world feel lived in at the same time. RedFall just looks dull and flat by comparison. No color, not much life, the environment looks so dull, and with everything mixed with the flat colors, seriously nothing about the visuals sticks out. But there's one thing that puts the most amount of salt in my mouth, and that's how the game runs. I'll get to the crashes, pop-in textures, and all that other stuff later, but all I want to say is 30 FPS? Who was like, oh yeah, let's make it look like shit, but also run like shit too. This game isn't pushing a hard graphic, so why is it running at 30 FPS? It makes no sense. In conclusion, the art and the menu need to burn. Nothing about each is right. The art style doesn't even look right, and the menu is full of trash. Why do I put myself through this? Believe it or not, when I first saw this game's open world, I got pretty pumped, mostly for two major reasons. One, the size. The size of RedFall is not that big. I like these smaller open worlds like Batman Arkham Knight and Metro Exodus, and I think the designs are much cleaner and overall the right choice. Then there's the second one, which is where it takes place. I'm kind of tired of cities, so they just don't do it for me anymore. So to have these suburbs is a nice change of pace. Saying all that, it feels like the open world is made for me. So what's the problem? The answer will shock you. So let's talk about one of the biggest ones and then move our way down the list of issues. Yes, I will address the main reason that people dislike the open world. It's really, really dead. There is no life. To explain the broader issue here, you need to understand that the enemies that inhabit this world are random, which sounds fine. The problem is that half of the time you'll run into one or two enemies on your way somewhere, and the other half of the time there's no one around. The only time that you'll usually run into enemies is at your objective, which makes much of your travel distance between you and your objective extremely dull. If you don't want an open world to have friendly NPCs, then you need enemies all over the map. The map is generally super flat. Once you see the trees and the normal houses, and get used to it because you'll be seeing that for the rest of the game. So I'll try to mention something in favor of this game's open world. The eclipsed sun and the water getting rolled back / frozen in time. These are cool ideas, but you never really get to see them in action. The water is only at the edges of the map, which you never really go to, other than your character mentioning it. That's the only time it comes into play in terms of design when it comes to the eclipse. These are cool ideas, just never brought into the forefront. In fact, I doubt the average player would even notice them. These are the only good things about RedFall's world, and they handled it terribly. Going back to the day-night cycle, I think it's a huge waste of a mechanic. Since the sun is blocked out at all times, vampires really aren't affected by this cycle, or any enemies for that matter. So I don't even understand why they have the day-night cycle in this game in the first place. And yes, there is a second map, and it looks close to the last map. Seriously, if you had a chance to spice it up, really change up the look of this game, but instead, we just get like a second version of it for no reason to be the second map. So we'll talk about the visuals. But what about the gameplay? That's also a massive problem. In RedFall, there isn't much cover. You can't hide between the cars because they'll explode, and the rocks are only there so the AI can get caught on it. So in this game, cover really isn't much of an option. You tend to fight in a wide open space with mobility you have. Combat kind of feels dull. The environment has nothing to help that gameplay, and in many ways kind of hurts it. Indoors, it's even worse. With little space, you're just spamming is usually how it will go. Another issue that I have with the open world is what you can do in it. To put it in simpler terms, I'm talking about what you can do in the open world. There are 3 things you can do in the open world. The most obvious is doing side missions or main missions. The second one is to unlock safe houses, and the third is to unlock locations. I'm going to skip over the first one and talk about 2 and 3. Safe houses are a bit of a joke. All you do is find a safe house. They tend to be really easy to spot since you get close to them and they'll automatically pop up on your map, and then you turn on a generator and that's it. That was a good one. That's all you have to do to unlock a safe house. Then at any point you can fast travel to it. The locations are even more pathetic. All you do is go up to them, press A, and that's it. Again, this is unbelievably lazy design. The only thing worth mentioning about this is that you have to take down the underbosses in order to keep that area safe. Now, you might think there might be different designs and types, like cool versions of mini-bosses, right? But sadly, that isn't the case. They're just regular vampires, which is just a huge shame.
Skip. But when does this game get fucking good?
What is the interest in actually playing in the open world if the open world has so little to do? I ragged on Gotham Knights and Arkham Origins, but boy do I feel sorry for doing that. Since I mentioned Gotham Knights, a game that I don't think is very good, let's compare the open world of Gotham Knights to RedFall in terms of gameplay. Gotham Knights travel is far better. In Gotham Knights, you get different forms of traversal with each character, making you feel like every character that you pick has a purpose on how they get across a map. While in RedFall, every character just runs, and that's it. In terms of activity, Gotham Knights is giving you way more stuff to do, with crime events often with a variety of stuff to do, while in RedFall, you're just doing the same thing. On top of that, Gotham Knights, you fight Harley, Clayface, Mr. Freeze, each with their own quest and boss fights. RedFall has nothing like this. And no, I'm not counting Bloody Tom and Miss Whisper because they are a part of the main mission, so don't even type in your comments, don't even do that, nah. And again, I want to say I'm not a big fan of Gotham Knights. I don't even think it's a good game. But seeing what they've done in that game versus what is done here, I'm shocked. Let's compare yet again to another open world and see what I'm talking about when it comes to the design of the open world. Let's go with, Persona 5. Persona 5 truly has the best art styles of gaming. Every place you go to has a sense of style pouring out. From the bar at, okay, I'm gonna put these in I'm gonna put text, okay, because I'm saying this wrong. Shinjuku, Kechijoji, and Shibuya, I know that one, and even the Underground Mall. These are all places in real life, but are put in the game so well that it's shocking. Versus in RedFall, everything feels hollow. There's just no exaggerating to its design or even color for that matter. And stealth in Persona 5 feels more purposeful, with the palaces having multiple ways to progress. In RedFall, everything just feels completely thrown together with no attention to detail. This has to be one of the worst open worlds I've ever seen. Not just in terms of gameplay, but in terms of design as well. This open world needs to understand that everyone can do better than this. How is it you start with an understandable ideas yet fumbled this badly? If I were to fix this map, it should start by scrapping it entirely. There is nothing that can fix this except for being built from the ground up. Out of all the things this game needed, good enemy designs are at the top of the list. Near everything about the enemy types is wrong on an individual level and on a broader level. So let's run headfirst into this. There are 4 main types of enemies: cults, regular vampires, shrouds, and rooks. I shit you not, that's it. That is it. So let's go through them one at a time. Cult members typically have the same weapons, usually carrying shotguns, pistols, and sniper rifles. Now there is one different kind of cult member, which is the type that usually carries a megaphone. All they do is call reinforcements sometimes, and I don't know, I thought that was at least worth mentioning. They all, quite literally, are the most basic of enemy types. There's nothing special about them. They either throw smoke or they shoot. That's about all they do. But when they have trouble doing that, but, you know, we'll get to that. I can't wait, man. The human types are just laughable, and they're not even the elite versions as you get to see later on. And they're all over the map. So if you ever get tired of facing the same enemy type, too bad, man. You should get used to it. The next one up is the regular vampires. They can teleport and only do melee attacks. They tend to be a bit tankier than the humans, and that's about it. The only other thing to add to this game is the repeating animation that you're going to get tired of doing more than 5 times of doing it. Vampires are hard to deal with at first, but vampires are weak after certain weapons that you gain, making them a joke in the middle of the game and onward. Then you have the Shroud. I don't know much about them due to them showing up so rarely, as a joke almost. They can shoot spells and create weird bubbles hiding themselves that far away, and yet again, that's about it. They don't play or feel super different. They're kind of a hack-bake enemy. It makes more sense that they act as a support, but that doesn't even have any supporting abilities, so IDK. Sorry guys, I forgot to mention the Siphon coming back to this video. So yeah, all it does is kind of suck blood when you're inside of it, and that's kind of it. It doesn't really do much other than that. Sorry guys, but I've been working on this video night and day, making sure... Yeah, classic Splinter. Classic ending Splinter. And the last one is the Rooks. Rooks are basically a vampire reskin with a lot more health and a lot less teleporting. They're only sent by the vampire gods after you've angered them enough. They are incredibly annoying to deal with due to their health and damage. Okay, now I can talk about it more in depth. If you didn't catch it, I really didn't talk about these subclasses, and that's for a reason. Hollow Cultist, Watchers, and Shields don't make them any different from their own class. It's just a cultist that can summon others. That's it. Watchers that are just snipers that absolutely suck at their job. That's it. Vampires that have shields. That's it. None of their core styles change. Subclasses need to justify their change. You don't have to go over the moon, but this isn't enough to really change the combat in any meaningful way. And you know what? You can still make combat somewhat interesting with it. It just wouldn't still be complete and half-baked, but it could work. Therein lies the problem. And a big one at that. You will run into cultists nearly all the time. Half the time you'll see vampires, and the only other time that you see shrouds and rooks are like a handful of times. They barely ever mix it up. The only time it mixes it up is with the cultist and a vampire or two. Again, that's it. This is awful design because the fights that you're in is just the same group of enemies time and time again. Oh god, I literally forgot an enemy type. I don't know their names, but they explode or something. I just like to say that, you know, I've only ran into them a handful of times, so that kind of proves my point, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I forgot about them. I'm bad at my job. Every game needs to mix up the design of the enemies to keep the game from feeling tiresome, but RedFall just doesn't do that at all. Now, it's time to play my favorite game, the comparison game. I just love doing it. Let's see, yeah, let's go with DMC 5. No ending Splinter. Damn, I meant DMC games in general are full of all kinds of enemies. In later games, they even put them into categories. Some are for support through healing or shields. Some are bigger enemies that are hard to take down with more health. Some enemies focus on damage, focusing on them trying to mess up your style. Some focus on long range damage. Some focus on flying, and you need to use a gun to take them down. Some are just normal enemies that are just easy to deal with. Almost instantly you understand what to do and trying to play against that. Over time you will figure out what works and what doesn't. Not only are there a lot of enemy types, they aren't just reskins. And on top of that, they are more mixed up, meaning no fights will feel the same. It even does this with different difficulties. The point is to make the combat feel and act differently. Are there annoying enemies? Definitely. But far better than RedFall, and doing at least some amount of work possible. You know what the funny part about this is? This was intended to be a live service game, so you're supposed to play it over and over again. Imagine, what a joke. Now, the last thing you have heard already. You know, we all know it, the AI in this game is laughable. I legitimately think game journalists are playing as the enemies because wow. I'll show you what I mean. Feast your eyes on this.
Absurd, but still.
RedFall is for the red gods.
Finished.
You will never see the sun again. Is that all?
All up the arse.
Next time.
Lashings of ultraviolence. I'll never get the message over.
This is so sad.
I told you depression could happen to any one of us, James.
Yeah, for real. And it hit that dude like nothing else.
Okay, so that AI, that enemy type didn't even notice you.
Cries of Brady Payne. Get to know.
I just can't get a good shot on him. What do you mean? I didn't like
Oh, that's the funny part. I knew that he was vertically challenged, so as soon as he started chasing me, I just jumped on top of the car, waited for him to teleport, and then he would just didn't know what to do when
Vertically
he was
challenged.
He is vertically challenged.
Be patient with me. I don't deal with verticals well. Cry of fear. Love it. Death's. It's fucking killing me. I can't.
Man, I don't know what the hell they were even like thinking when making this game, or what went on.
With all this put together, you have few enemy types, these subclasses that are awful, and there is no mix-up of the enemies you fight. And the AI is the cherry on top of this shit sandwich. You have to nearly start from scratch just to fix all of this. Worst enemies I've seen in a video game, period. The story of this game is rather confusing. The intro to the game doesn't tell you much about the story, it's told through the gravelocks. Through the gravelocks we hear the story of Claire. Claire was a girl filled with some kind of magical blood that could help others. So she was told at least. So a medical organization, what a shitty organization, took advantage of this and became gods and basically created vampires. Now, you may say, you already said that at the beginning of the video. And that's true. In fact, this part of this story is repeated over and over and over again, to the point where I've heard the same thing. Via YouTube, I listened to all the gravelocks, and for like 20 minutes, it's the same thing. How she wanted to save everyone and got taken advantage of. The story loves to repeat itself. Even though this was already told to us at the beginning of the game, sure there were details left out, but you still cover that in the intro, and the rest of the story either expands upon that or develops into something new. But this puts a light on how the story is told. There are 3 things to a story: themes, characters, and plots. But there's a secret 4th one, and that would be how the story is told. We don't talk about this one a whole lot due to how it's being told is naturally a part of the media, such as dialogue and such. There's no bad way to tell a storytelling, only bad execution. However, today, there absolutely is a bad way to tell a story. I can't draw emotions from the scene like I could from a PowerPoint. Oh, you don't like that? Too bad. Sometimes they don't even have lines.
Man, somebody who made this sure does love that water splash sound effect. That's the predominant audio clip that's just playing in my head right now.
I know, they really love that. I don't know who, who was in the development team, and it was like, yeah, dude, we're gonna make a splash sound effect every 3 seconds. It'll be great, man.
I think it used to be a nice town. When I first got here, they said a world with rivers, monsters. Folks, some were just hiding, waiting for a rescue that ain't. Some tried to get away, but the monsters who started all. No, let's.
Oh no! Wow, those are some big grippers. It feels like I'm watching a mobile game trailer.
They kind of remind me of like Mortal Kombat endings a little bit.
Well, but it is probably the saving money with how it looks. It looks like a fucking Steam early access game. So,
And it only runs at 30 FPS on console.
Dude.
Like DMC4 could handle 60 and it was made under a year. What's going on?
Right. Well, I mean, game development is hard.
Well, from what you're telling me, it's like this game went through like development hell.
And the worst one is the spirit things. I hate these. If you don't know, at certain points of the story, you have to hear story bites. And in these story bites, you can hear a cutscene and look at these body outlines. Yeah, we'll go with that. They don't even put effort to make them look different. They don't even move. That's the whole point of watching something, is to see it in some fashion move. But it just doesn't improve the story. What a joke. The way that this story is told is awful, but the part that doesn't make sense to me is the side characters. Now, usually side missions aren't a part of the story, but you should still connect them to the game in some way. However, thinking more about the story, I came to a conclusion that I think is worth telling. If we were to cut out the characters from the fire station, like the pregnant lady and the doctor, nothing would change the main story, other than these side quests that don't really do anything. So why are they here? You can do side quests without these characters, or just generally cut down the characters. They don't fit into the story. Let me remind you, the theme of RedFall is immortality and the power to corrupt. How does a popcorn machine do with any of this? So let's compare. Splinter Cell Blacklist has certain missions that loosely connect to the story, but the main reason that you're here is to offer something on the gameplay side of the core of the gameplay. Grim has more stealth-focused missions, Coben has more of the elimination missions, and Charlie just has full-out brawls. Each side quest has a purpose. Even the story is somewhat connected to the main mission of the game. Failure, on the other hand, is the gameplay is to get a thing or to put a thing. That's it. That's all it ever boils down to. The only time where they did something different is when the lady was given birth, but even then you didn't do that much to find the house. Expect go to the house, start the power, and then go back to the house again. How does this expand the gameplay? How does this expand the story? The worst part about all of this is through your main character gets zero to do in terms of character growth or depth. Unless you want to hear Layla say dead ass. These characters don't play a part in the story. Other than their lines, you can replace the character with a blank slate and you would have the same effect. In the marketing, they lied to us, man. Multiple times in the trailers they would interact, but in the game, it never happens. The story doesn't change no matter who you pick. Even in Gotham Knights, the story would have certain moments for each character, giving them at least some depth. The last major thing I want to touch upon is the villains. The villains in this game are just downright horrible. They all play out the same. The human does something bad, and then becomes a god. That's it. There is never a dimensions to a character, it's just the same garbage thrown at me, and I really don't care about it. Nothing ever changes. It's always the same thing, and the game expects me to care. Like, why? Overall, the story is a mess. No characters, no good villains, no story, no way to tell it. I have never seen a story so broken at the core like this. It amazes me that people somehow think that, well, some of these people think that it's actually good somehow. I think it's about time we talk about the gameplay, or the main part of it. This is yet again another part of the game that's broken. Let's start off with one of my biggest problems. The skills, upgrades, and abilities are slow, like at a snail's pace, dragging the game's abilities down. Let's play the comparison game yet again, not to see how it's done better, but to see how the same issue can affect other games. DMC3 has few issues, but one of its biggest issues in the game is the leveling system of the styles. Instead of just flat out buying more moves of said style, you have to earn it by playing the game more with said style locked. This completely destroys the idea of playing with the different styles throughout your first playthrough. Because why would you want to switch when you have even more work to do with the other styles? The problem that came with this is the fact that the leveling system was slow. It took nearly the whole game's first playthrough just to max it out. This problem is the exact same with RedFall. Since it desperately wants to play more of the game at all times, it drags it out as much as possible. The part that I don't understand is why. Well, I mean, I know why they want you to play the game more, but why as in this choice when multiple skills are repeated with other characters, like more ammo and health. And just like DMC3, you won't typically play other characters just how slow the leveling system is. And just to prove what I mean, more than 10 hours with the game, and yet I'm still not close to finishing up the character's skills. And this doesn't transfer to other characters, just yippee! And wait, there's one more thing left. There are no new skills. These skill points can you upgrade are currently existing, but the game never gives you new skills throughout the game, which is such a waste. I thought the whole idea of having multiple characters is to make them distinct with their skills, but that's not the case here, I guess. Even in Gotham Knights, skill points would transfer. Gotham Knights of all games. So how are guns? That is the question. Gun or not to gun? Big shock that the guns aren't all that good. You'll have your typical shotguns, rifles, and pistols. And before I go further, I want to say that the normal guns feel a bit weak, both in sound and in weight. The sound effects don't sound crisp, and they kind of sound generic, while the knockback really isn't there, especially with a shotgun, a gun known for having knockback, yet there is only it present in the animation. The regular guns in general just feel lackluster. So what about the vampire-centered weapons? I mean, they aren't the worst, but they are by far from being good. Let's start off with the UV light. The idea of the weapon is to slowly stop the vampire, but I swear to you, this thing is too slow for it to be effective. But it doesn't stagger the enemy until it actually stops the vampire. This weapon is too situational. When you're surrounded by enemies, this thing is useless because you need to hit all of them at once. This weapon can only be used at certain times, so I just gave up on this weapon because the stake launcher did a much better job. Speaking of which, the stake launcher is okay, but it takes by far too long to reload and only handles a handful of ammo, but the weapon is really powerful. I never came across a flare gun with good stats, so I won't be talking about it. Overall, the vampire weapons are cool, but just need more work. I'm honestly shocked by how lazy kind of the design is. Look, come on, only 3 vampire-centered weapons? We can get more creative than that if you want to combine the UV light, flare, and stake launchers with already existing weapons, or just add more vampire weapons in general because I'm playing a game where I get to fight vampires, so give me more stuff to kill with vampires. If I could shoot them, just to let you guys know if you don't know already, I played this game on Xbox Series S, and holy mother of... Okay, I'm just going to ignore that ending, Splinter. The aim is downright awful. I can't move the camera fast enough. But if I want to change that, I would also have to change the aiming down the sight. Excuse me? What? So if you see me struggling to hit the enemy, you know why. Which sucks because I'm dealing with teleporting enemies. But you want to know what makes it worse? The fact that there is no aim assist. Oh, some of you might be saying, Splinter, stop being a little bitch and just aim. And it's like, okay, yeah, and that's mostly true. I just want to say that I can't get it, but PC players can? How does that make any sense? PC has the best form of aiming. They don't need it. I do. Now let's jump into the part that bugs me that I've heard a lot of people talk about. The characters. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't played all of them. However, I know their movements and I have played a lot of dev. There are just 2 problems with the characters. The first one is the fact that they don't focus on a set idea for a kit. Other than Jacob, no character really has a set focus. Like, let's take Layla and Deb for example. Both of them have an ability for crowd control, and both have an ability for movement. These 2 characters don't feel defined enough for there to be a difference. If you gave Deb or Layla all mobility and the other one all crowd control, then we have a character that's more distinct, making playing different characters worth it. So we may end up with the Masters of None scenario, where characters have range, but at the expense of their identity. Yo, Splitter, actually the characters have an identity. Deb has the gadgets and Layla has the spells. Duh. And to that I say, 1, your mom. Secondly, yes, they have an identity when it comes to look, but I'm talking strictly about gameplay. And they're specifically their ability and what they accomplish. And what they accomplish is the same thing. You paint a different color, but at the end of the day, it's still the same wall. And this leads into another problem with the characters. There's not enough. You have like 2 main abilities and an ultimate, and that's it. I know I've already touched upon this, but it needs to be said. If you have a game like Overwatch that has tons of different characters, that's okay. In fact, it makes the experience better due to the developer knowing more about how to control and balance the game. But with RedFall, there are only 4 characters, and we get 3 abilities. This is laughably low for a game like this. What were they working on? When the content is dragged out this badly, it gives me only questions on what they were actually doing for this game. One last thing that we can talk about that you probably came here for. The nest. Oh my god. Kill me. Nests are supposed to be these cool dungeons meant for grinding for loot, but I cannot, to the life of me, think why you would do it. Everything about its design is just run forward, and they don't even look that different because they reuse tons of assets. What else do you want me to talk about, You're not my mom. You can't make me write about an essay about this design idea. But what else is there to say? You run in a straight line to reach the end, to unhook it, and that's it. The randomizers aren't even that good. Why would you want to play any more of this game? Other than the loot, this experience just feels thrown together. And finally, we get to talk about the looter-shooter aspect of the game. I'm not going to be the last one to say this, and I'm certainly not the first. The looter-shooter part of this game really isn't necessary. Like, at all. Not every game needs to have RPG and looter-shooter elements. It's okay to just make a game and have some DLC after. Not every game needs it. Because what a lot of companies are finding out is that people play a handful of live service games, meaning this side of the market is extremely hard to get into. Since there being so many titles that are live service, it would probably be safer just to make a normal single player game. I know some of you guys may not like this next sentence, but live service games aren't inherently bad, by nature. But if you want to be like Destiny, you have to understand that it survived because of its complex gameplay. Redfall's core gameplay is equivalent to a wet towel. The fact is that if this game chooses the path or just makes a normal single player game that could focus on things like guns, abilities, characters, enemies, AI, nest, bosses, and more. It's not that the looter shooter elements are bad, it's just the execution is. That's the problem. The complexity of gameplay needs to be high. If DMC was a live service game, you can bet your ass I'd be grinding all day. But you want to play Gotham Knights, the game that barely boils down to 3 buttons? This line of thinking is killing the industry. Every game wants to be the next Fortnite without understanding any of the thought behind that. So when the industry just rushes out any game and slaps it on it, and most live service games don't even come out with a roadmap. The whole point of a games as a service is to keep you playing with new content, and as I'm writing this, there still hasn't been a post or any post-launch content. These games as a service are jokes. It's all because of greed. These games could be good, but like Redfall, it has no purpose in the game. If you took this element out and just focused on making a full game, that the game wouldn't be like this. This is the fault of greed, and I'm sick of it. How many more games have to die to understand that? Redfall, while lacking in personality, could be a good game, but instead the higher-ups wanted to make money. In terms of story and gameplay, this is a terrible fight, but that's me mentioning the Hollow Man. There are 3 bosses in this game. 4, but kind of. We'll talk about the nightmare of the last boss fight later, if you can even call it a boss fight. There is the Hollow Man, Bloody Tom, and Miss Whisper, each of which I'll talk about right now. First up is the Hollow Man. The Hollow Man's boss fight is really simple. Maybe because it's the first boss, yet it seems completely underwhelming. All he can do is suck blood, beam, and summon butterflies. Each have a part to play. The beam and suck makes you want to take advantage of the cover around in your area, but the butterflies are summoned if you break his line of sight for too long. It travels around the area and does a lot of damage done to you if you're hit by it. It wouldn't be a boss fight without phases, and once you knock down Hollow Man's health enough, he becomes protected by minions, each of which has to be stopped while fighting the ghosts or whatever. I found this phase to be just really annoying. It's the problem we'll see again, but here it's clear as day. To drag out the boss fight as much as possible, I think these two put together make for the fight just being so dull and slow, but most importantly cheap. Slow because it doesn't add much to the overall fight, and cheap because if you get hit from it, not from the boss, rather from one of his lackeys, if you die in the chain of events, it feels completely out of your control of the boss fight itself. But there is one major thing that I haven't talked about yet, and that's the big exploit. You know how I said if you break the Hollow Man's line of sight for too long, he'll summon the butterflies? So I tested a theory. A ninja Okay, sorry, I stopped. So look at the results.
Skipping ahead. Stand clear.
You'll never leave this place.
This is terrible design. How does everyone manage to not catch this? The next one up is Bloody Tom. Bloody Tom's theme is the death mist that you see in the game. So even the projectiles he shoots have it in some way. It's hard to run over the map. Speaking of which, you know what sucks about this boss fight? Not being able to run around. There were quite a few times where I realized I couldn't go anywhere because the death mist was everywhere, making me look like a pro X-Defiant player with the amount of camera movement I was doing. And it gets worse when you damage him enough. He can also pick up spikes to throw at you. I know what they're called, I just don't know how to spell it in the script. It's stalactites, I believe, the when they hang down, whatever. Which you need to run to cover in order to evade. He can also do melee, but if you're only super close to him. Otherwise, he won't do it to you. This boss is a whole lot of running around in circles because that's one of the few ways to dodge his attacks, which is really sad. I think they can improve upon this boss with a platform or two or more high risk, high reward scenarios. I do like the fact that he doesn't summon others, which is nice, but then again, I realized something. What if I just hid behind a rock? Could he hit me? I asked myself. So I tested it out, and yeah. Yet another boss that can be completely cheesed. I swear they don't put the amount of thought or effort into these bosses, they just throw a couple of moves together and call it a boss fight. The last one to go over is Miss Whisper. I have mixed feelings about her. She has the return of the enemies, and here it's much worse than the Hollow Man. With the Hollow Man's phase, you were juggling that and the fat ass. Fat asses? Yeah. No, not that one ending, Splinter. Yes, those. I could easily shoot them or run up to them and they would be taken care of. But with Miss Whisper, you have to shoot the ghost while also shooting multiple specific points on the tower at the same time. But sometimes they just don't want to work. But by far the most frustrating aspect of this point is that for a while I had trouble because her attacks are brutal. I swear to you, I can just barely dodge them even with the teleporter. The spirit isn't enough, and if they even had 3/4 of the health, you can get one shot with her grabs. While I did like the boss fight at first, over time I talked about her, I realized she's not very good. It felt good to beat solely because of the other bosses could be easily cheesed.
Does he straight up just beat it by hiding behind his pillar the entire time?
Pretty much.
Just very kind of slow. Jeez, you're barely even moving in this like footage.
Plank he brings out of nowhere. It doesn't even show it puncturing the the model.
Exactly. It hits something completely different.
It hits air.
That's really lame.
This is literally, we got Diablo at home, you know?
Yes, the Diablo. Yeah, that's the perfect analogy, yeah.
In like a shooter like this, it doesn't seem like it's working that well. Maybe it can be done well, but I'm just not seeing it being like, put together.
These bosses are honestly a joke. They only have a few moves. They can be cheesed, and they can be thrown together. I hate to say this, but Gotham Knights bosses were better than this. They had more complexity than running away or hiding like a coward. What a shame. And there are only 4 bosses in this game. DMC3 has like 1 million more boss fights, and each one is 1 billion times better than this. Where did all that time go into, man? Before I go any further, I'm going to do a lot of screaming in this section, so maybe turn your volume down because it gets way worse in every way. After beating Bloody Tom and Miss Whisper, you head to the rally. Once clearing out the rally, a spirit, not even a full person, tells you need to collect 3 pieces of bullshit all over the map. If it sounds stupid, it is. Once collecting all of them, you head back and open your pocket to find the Black Sun.
The testament of all your faculties, everything you've learned up to this point, and with your proclivity and ace level skill, your S ranking skills to hide behind pillars, as well to stab your enemies with planks, you're basically a deity amongst mortals at this point. So I can't wait to see how this final boss battle goes.
This boss is the definition of ass. So here's what you do. You try not to get hit and hold X. You then try not to get hit and then hold X. And then you go to a place, try not to get hit, and hold X. And that's it. The boss fight's over. If you think this sounds bad, that's because it is. While doing this, you have to deal with a ton of enemies. I was struggling at first, so I looked it up, and I thought, damn, there must be some strat or some high-level play that I'm missing here. So I watched the video, and it was just running to the place, pressing X, and just hoping for the best. Then I realized, right, I'm playing RedFall, silly me. So I just charged over and over again until I beat the boss. What great design. They could have just something more, but they just gave up. And remember, the whole point is that the finale takes what you've learned and put it together. What is to learn when you just charge forward over and over again? At first, I got mad, but over time I just learned that I just need to turn my brain off and it makes the experience so much better.
I said it's not even in phases or anything. It's just you hold it.
Nope, that's it. What I'm showing you right now is basically the boss fight in its entirety.
Wow. Really fucking boring.
Oh, look, that design again. I love how I was trying to praise the game and say, this is a pretty good looking area, very aesthetically pleasing. I'm like, oh, look, there's that boss mechanic you told me about.
The real thing that was the frustrating part was the teleporter for some reason not working. At all. It was my main source of healing, and this boss is a joke by every measure. No fight, just a lot of circles, which perfectly leads me into talking about the end of the story. The story is a nightmare. So the intro is about a girl that gives her blood that creates vampires. So at the end, we learn that the girl that gave her blood creates vampires. Nothing of note has happened. Yes, we kill Bloody Whisper, Hollow Man, and now the Black Sun, but after that, we get a cutscene saying that there's still more out there and that the job isn't finished. What was the point of the game's story then? Our characters don't develop, the villains don't develop, the plot hasn't, so what has happened? Nothing in the story, it's just one big circle. Nothing of note has happened to cause what would take effort. What is the point of the story? The story was just do a thing and then do another thing, over and over again with no clear idea what the game was about. We didn't gain anything when the intro to the game gives us the story already. Nothing has progressed. Yeah, we killed vampires, but there was never anything behind it. But let's compare. In the intro to the game section, I mentioned that Persona 3, Watch Dogs 2, and Hi-Fi Rush had a better intro. So, how do the endings stack up against RedFall? Sorry for the spoilers, just skip near the end of this section if you don't want to hear it. I won't be talking about Persona 3 because I haven't finished that game yet. Watch Dogs 2's ending is really great. Throughout the whole story, Deshawn is the primary antagonist. At the end of nearly every mission, Deshawn is there plotting and keeping his cool. Deshawn acts like he's got everything under control.
Oh no! What have you
Jesus Christ, get me in the fucking ear. And for the most part, he's in control. He completely sets up Marcus and nearly ends DedSec single-handedly. But in the end, he goes to jail due to DedSec. And when he does, it's satisfying because he did so much to you and your crew, which by having character writing and special scenes. Speaking of which, You get to play as all the other crew members. They literally let you play as Wrench, and you can explode anything that moves like a fraction of a meter. Overall, Watch Dogs 2's ending is great. It gives you everything you want and more with a satisfying ending that fits the game and makes the whole thing worth it. Hi-Fi Rush also delivers with its ending as well. Kale is an unstoppable force. He is built up well in giving you his backstory and what he wants. Kale wants to make out to be the no-nonsense man with greed. And because of that greed, he underestimates Chai and his crew, leading to one hard 1v1, where all your skills come to play. The parrying, the music, changes what makes the games worth it, and with the boss fight on the hardest difficulty, it makes it even better. And when you finally beat him, each get their own send-off by something that they've earned throughout the story. This game's ending is such a bad sequel bait or hoping that you can play more of this game, but there is nothing to be invested with. I don't think I could think of a worse ending. I think that they could have assassinated any character, but what character is there to assassinate in this game? No one is well written. The gameplay sucks from the start to finish. There is no thing good about this game. The reason why I didn't want to make this video about anything else was because of the fact that there is no lower point than this. I just wanted to open with, I love how they blame the PC side. Yo, Arcane, I played 30 FPS on Xbox Series S and it crashed 6 times. Trust me, it's not the player's fault. There is a lot of things I didn't talk about, like why is there a trap beat in RedFall? I didn't know I was watching Black Panther.
Something the cultists call the Black Sun. Maybe Bloody Tom and Miss Whisper were keeping her in...
In fact, the soundtrack for this game is god-awful. It really just plays like the 6 tracks over and over again, and you're gonna get sick of it. I didn't even talk about the side quests in depth. I didn't even talk about the voice work. But that aside, the question on everybody's mind is, we have to ask ourselves the questions here, like, is there a God? How could he let this happen? Who did this to me? Who can I sue? I also asked the people in this video.
Here's the thing. Xbox, as the person that owns Bethesda and all that shit, should be looking at their profile and being like, because here's the thing, Microsoft shouldn't be so fixated on trying to get Activision that they aren't properly governing their other fucking divisions, like their little subdivisions and partners and shit. If I was, and that's why I think Phil Spencer has gone on record saying that it's his fault and blames himself, because it'd be like, look, no matter Bethesda's or Arcane's issues, whatever, you guys are supposed to be the one that has the final say and can pull the plug on something if it's, no, this just isn't working. So they have the final word on it. They're the ones that said, okay, yeah, sure, print it. And didn't look into it at all. They just took Arcane's word for it that the game was working and then shipped it. So that's their fault. The same can also kind of be said for Bethesda. But Bethesda has had a really bad track record with its publishing, because it'll turn around and it'll be like, yeah, what up, bitch, we made fucking Doom Eternal, and then it'll have Hunted the Demon's Forge on there, and you're like, what the fuck, what is this, it'll have these weird ass games on there where you're just like, who made this, and why, who was allowed to do this? Even fucking Ghostwire Tokyo was a complete flop. And for almost like the same reasons with fucking Redfall, man. It's a lot of people just not knowing what to do, and they're getting told about live service, open world, and player retention, and looter shooter, and not about how to make a fucking interesting, like, combat scenario, and just, like, throwing enemies and mechanics and shit into a sandbox and just hoping that the fun happens.
So, have you
That's
seen
how bad a lot of these things are.
Have you seen the Jason Schreier report on this game?
No.
So Jason Schreier, known for his heartbreaking journalism, right? And he talked to some of his inside sources. So it turns out a lot of this was from Xenomarks or something like that. Xenomark something. They're the parent company that owns Bethesda, right? And they went to Arcade Austin and they were like, hey, you guys made Prey and Dishonored 2. They might be good games, but they didn't make us money. So make us the monies. And they were like, but it's some of the monies. It's like, no, we want all the money. So make a looter shooter. And they were like, okay, sure. And then they're like, well, make it Far Cry. It was like, what? And then they were like, oh, make it Borderlands. And they were like, what? And then 70% of the staff left because they just didn't want to work on this game. They knew the quality of the game was bad. They just didn't tell Xbox. And Xbox found out the hard way, so...
It's like unfinished mess that isn't like worth anybody's time, really. Or you basically summed it up in all these videos. It's just kind of crazy how bad the gameplay is. Like, it's just really in this time of development, they could barely get the premise together or what they wanted it to actually be. And it sounded like they just wanted it to be like Borderlands, but also wanted it to be like all this other stuff.
Oh, okay, 70% of the staff left. This feels like one of those type of games. Like, okay, the team was like, I don't want my fucking name on this. I don't want my name anywhere associated with whatever this is about to be. And when you look at this on it, like, oh yeah, that's a cool game. But then a looter shooter, it doesn't feel like something they've created like anything they've created prior. So that's, and we all know how profitable a lot of looter shooters are, and just mechanically speaking, how some of the best games in multiple franchises go down the toilet just simply due to the incorporation of certain elements to maximize monetization, such as the last what is it called? Dead Space game. At least not the one that's currently being remade, but the third in the trilogy, where they basically isolated off the second player like narrative. My favorite series of all time, Dynasty Warriors, created a game where, no joke, playing your particular warrior with the unique weapon, as in whoever was your favorite user, like Zhang He with his claws, was sold as an exclusively separate package deal when it came to the game. And that package deal ran up to $60. So yeah, or maybe 30. But either way, it was like its own DLC bundle. You know, something that should have came with the game that was now sold as its independent element of said game. But yeah, in terms of the competitive market for like independent like single player games, they don't do as well as a lot of pachinko mobile games, and a lot of those games are exceptionally profitable in terms of the replayability, the ability to monetize the whales of the market in the industry, essentially acknowledging that most people will play only one game and spend a absorbent amount of time playing those games. It is easy to monetize those individuals, thus making single player games, while extremely fulfilling, not exorbitant in terms of like the financial like profitability. But yeah, when you said 70% of the crew left, I'm like, yep, yeah, this feels like one of those. This now it makes sense. Now it's starting to all make sense. This brave souls to stay on this project. Very brave souls.
To me, I think everyone needs to take the blame. Xbox should have seen this coming. He said that they were double digits lower than they thought. How could you think this game would be double digits higher is beyond me. Bethesda was upper management when this happened, this game being made. They should have seen this coming. And Arcane made this shit themselves. They need to understand that the quality of the game rests on them as well. So I think everyone needs to understand that a little bit of it is everyone's fault. I hope this isn't the end of Xbox. I'm sure that they'll make a comeback and post some bangers. I really badly want to play Hellblade 2, and that's all at this rate. While this may be an L for Xbone, I'll always support Game Pass and the great games that they bring over. As I'm saying this, the Xbox Showcase had a lot to offer. There are tons of new Xbox games coming out, so saying Xbox has no games is going to die, if it hasn't already. With Xbox doubling down on Game Pass, it's clear that they don't care about the pure console sales, but rather to get more people to play on Game Pass. It's a very different approach. And with how many studios they've acquired, they can keep a stream of content from Xbox, and locking third-party games to Game Pass is really good for Xbox as well. Now listen up. This might be copium, so take it with a grain of salt. With PlayStation focusing on live service games, could, and I say could, do better for the console wars. Like, can probably have a chance to take on Sony, if not second, but even first.
You are coping and seething.
Yeah, laugh it up, Ending Splinter. But I think Xbox could very well turn this around. With the resources they have, Xbox now has more than ever had a fighting chance. Yeah, they will have a few stinkers, but if Xbox plays their cards right, we could see the dominance of the console war change. Do you get me, Ending Splinter? Oh, come on. Agree with me just on this one time. L-Take, are we on Twitter? Seriously, Ending Splinter, you have, get this, 0 power over me. What plane? Whoa! So yeah, that was the end of this video. Don't worry, I survived from the plane crash, you know, I didn't get any injuries on me, so I'm all good. Yeah, I guess I should talk about some of the stuff that I was mentioning at the beginning of the video. I've kind of been gone recently, so I guess what really happened with my DMC Devil May Cry video is that I was really intent on kind of making that the final thing, because a little bit of background for that video. I like fundamentally kind of destroyed myself in terms of mental health. That video did so much damage to me. I was staying up all hours of the night. I was just constantly miserable and adding stuff, and then it kept getting bigger and bigger, and I felt like I wanted to change and blah blah blah. And get this, guys, it was like a 7-hour video, but there was a lot of content that I cut, like a lot. So I felt like this had to be the end of Splinter, but obviously I do enjoy making videos, at least somewhat. Maybe like it's a passion of mine, I guess, and I really do enjoy the process of making a video. It just satisfies me. So saying that, after my video came out, I was good for about like a month, and then I just got hit with the worst depression that has ever hit my life, just entirely. Like, I kid you not, I've had like suicidal thoughts before, but oof, it was nothing compared to after that time period, which is not fun. And in a sense, I mentioned that I was taking a break from social media. It wasn't technically a break. I was technically just cut off from social media because I went to a place to actually, you know, become better. Like, you know, it's one thing to say I'm depressed, I can't do anything, you know, I can't sleep right, I can't eat right, I'm feeling these constant headaches, and then actually trying to improve yourself, and that's what I did. So I went to a medical center, spent 10 days there, and yeah, I feel much better. Obviously, if you look at my background, I'm in a completely new place. So yeah, everything has been kind of different. My lifestyle in general has kind of changed, and with moving to a new place, I feel more refreshed in terms of stuff to do in the future. So the next thing is that I'm going to be plugging my second channel. So I'll tell you about the future plans in just a second. But my second channel is where you'll see just a lot of just content that I just, you know, throw out there. It's not really highly edited. It's just stuff that I'm either thinking about, talking about, or talking to other people. It's just kind of the culmination of just whatever I want to put out. Obviously, it's called Talking with James, so I'm going to have stuff of me and him talking, obviously. But there is a lot of branching out content that I want to do. So if you guys are like, hey, where's Splinter? Why hasn't he made a video in like forever? You know, you can always go to my second channel and be like, oh, okay, so he's doing that. So that brings me to my final and last thing. I will not be making videos as the rate that I would before. So pretty much what happened is that as soon as I finished making a video, I was basically right back on top of it and doing even more videos. Like, I would go from one video just to the next. And I won't be doing that anymore. Obviously, I want to focus more stuff on life, but I do want to do YouTube videos. So what I'm going to do is like make a video, take a break for like 3 to 8 months, I don't know, it's gonna be a long time, you know, focus, and then when I have the time, I'll come back and make another banger long video. That's the plan, at least. Considering that this video, it doesn't take a lot of effort for me, which is strange because it looks like it does, but it's just I work very consistently on it, which makes the overall weight load, you know, less troubling, I guess. So yeah, that's the last bit of information that I have from y'all. I appreciate you, any of you, for just watching this far. If you watched this far, woof, man, you are a real one. You get a cookie after this, I promise. Okay, I'll email you a cookie, I promise. But yeah, that's kind of it. And with all that being said, I'll see you next time. I don't know when that'll be. Second channel, just in case you guys want more of me. But yeah, the more subscribers I have, the more I want to make this, you know, more than just a hobby. I would like to make it like a dream job, but you know, with the amount of subscribers I have, it'll probably be a while. So, but thanks for watching this far, and obviously check out the people that I featured in this video. And yeah, that's it.